Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Microsoft Dynamics 365 Tech Talk. My name is Andres Santos. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect with Microsoft, and I'll be moderating the session today. So before we get started, I'd like to cover a few announcements. So we're broadcasting the session through Microsoft Teams Town Hall, and the session is going to be recorded on behalf of Microsoft Corporation. When you join this event, your name and email address may be visible to session organizers. By joining, you are agreeing to this experience. If you do not consent to being part of a recorded session, feel free to disconnect. This recording will be made available on TechTalk's Community Dynamics page and the YouTube channel in the coming weeks. If you have any questions for our presenters or need any technical assistance with the Tech Talk during the session, please use the Q&A panel on the right side of your screen. You can also submit your question anonymously if you prefer, as your name won't be visible to organizers or other attendees. With that said, for today's content, we'll begin with Anusha, who will walk us through the POS modernization with React and Fluent UI. And we have a double session today. On the second half, Luke and Felipe will be walking you through extensibility skills and accelerators that are designed to help developers to build and deliver solutions more efficiently. Thank you all for joining us today. And Anusha, the floor is yours.
Hey, thanks, Andre. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today's Tech Talk. My name is Anusha Venkatesan. I'm a principal product manager within the Dynamics 365 Commerce team. I drive the roadmap for Store Commerce Framework as well as the user experience, and also have been part of the larger initiatives such as self-checkout. Today, I am excited to go through the POS modernization, the journey that we've had, and then the number of features that we have shipped before we transition on to the extensibility and how we may, help our customers customize and for their own business requirements within the React and as well as the extensibility skills that our team is excited to talk to you about. So I'll start moving on. All right. So just a quick, setting the stage for this 30 minutes of the intro session. I want to go through a quick timeline for what we've shipped so far, and definitely how to give guidance on how to adopt, which may include the feature flags, visual profile, and a guidance for how you may roll this out in a phased manner. Also a quick demo, like highlighting the various features. A lot have gone in and we've not had a chance to consolidate and kind of give you one picture. So let's just do that in a one glimpse here, and also a sneak peek into what's next for modernization. Okay, this is like a timeline representing everything that has happened over several releases on the POS modernization. If for folks that have been watching this very closely and have been jumping on every single release, this may be something that you are already aware of, but in general, wanted to give you how we've approached this journey. Way back a year before or a year and a half before, we started looking at all of our screens, the telemetry, and started to push the button on moving most of the use screens into React. We started with transaction grid and laid the foundation for the React screens, enabled those controls, and subtly started moving the transaction grid buttons and then the numpads and all of that into React, and even the date picker. And we tried to do some work on the zoom levels as well. We took on functional improvements and started to modernize the add to cart journey. And also a bunch of payment flow modernization went in for each of the payment methods. We tried to also improve the appearance of the cart in 42 with the cart imagery and making sure that the transaction lines have the cart. We tried to, along with the offline and reliability improvements, we also introduced a Toast framework that many of our customers and partners are using for their own business cases to start publishing Toast notifications. Then on the 44 is when we started to look at some of those, click heavy or touch heavy actions and trying to streamline them, such as inline actions, quantity updates, and having prompts for loyalty upsell. Over 47, that was a major drop where we had tried to modernize the search result pages. for the product listings page, and product details page went in a full overhaul. The 47 was applied with a lens of mobile optimized workflows, trying to touch every single workflow within the search page, the details page, and transaction page as much as possible to make sure that they are mobile optimized. They have this mobile gestures built in, because a lot of adoption within the mobile mobile customers started building up. So we wanted to make sure that whatever we do, the clienteling and aspects of it, they are all mobile optimized. That's kind of where we were. And one important thing to quote for 47 is we just did not just uplift the look and feel. We also tried to layer insights so that the store associate does not have to move context or switch context. So that was important for our 47. And what we just shipped in 48 was related to extensibility, and we started to also look at customer details page. So for the extensibility, many customers have come back to us to saying that, hey, inline action is good, but your set is prefixed. So let's just try and give us the ability for us to be able to customize, configure those inline actions. So that's what we did here. More on that in the next page. But that's our journey in modernization, and I'll be able to in the end also give you a look into what's immediately coming in the next release. And every one of this, we tried to keep extensibility as much as possible, trying to have a custom controls, making sure that partners and customers are able to extend those views. So that's very important, and that's kind of why we have that next session, to make sure that you are not blocked in trying to customize your pages. So a quick reminder, we make the modernization is just more than a UX refresh. So we try to make sure that every workflow is more optimized for faster selling. We made sure that the contextual insights are captured. Examples such as discount captions in search pages, the threshold bars, trying to nudge you with any discounts that are closer to proximity. Inventory availability right within the search pages, Copilot customer insights, kind of making sure that they are formatted in a way that is layered at the top. Product suggestions carousel. If you've noticed, we do have a new carousel in the transaction page right now for product suggestions, which is also extensible for you to call into your API and bring in some recommendations. And we also have a default, experience out there. Mobile optimized foundation, I talked about this. Want to make sure that every single page that we touch is not just for desktop, is also for across all of the form factors. And finally, the extensibility is definitely top of mind to ensure that whatever page we're working on is completely extensible for your requirements. And so far, these are the surface areas we have covered, which is transaction grid, the search results pages, the product detail page, and customer workflows. So the customer workflows, I just have to remind you that we have two releases. One went in 48, where we tried to make sure that the look and feel of the page has modified to React, and started with the workflow improvements. But 49 is where you're probably going to see much more, and we'll talk about that when I get there. Okay, this is the important stuff. So I know when we start shipping stuff very closely, it does become overwhelming for how you enable them. So I do want to please put this on your cheat sheet, or if you are still trying to be somewhere in this journey, right? Like it is important for you to know the bells and whistles that you have in order for you to have a phased rollout. So whenever we ship, we make sure that we have the feature flags for the Uber features. So the modern transaction grid is going to be the top feature for any subsequent updates that we did on transaction grid. So this feature flag should be on for the modern experience for transaction grid, which will also accompany the other feature flag, the visual profile toggle here. Now, we also, for the inline actions, we tried. The first release had a preset inline actions, for which we released a feature flag. You are welcome to use that. or you're welcome to use the configurable experience where you could go into the customization, into the screen layout and start to pick and choose your actions and order them in a way that you want inside the screen layout designer. So you only see what you want to see on the inline actions. We have the product images, and that is also accompanied by a separate feature flag. I have folks asking me for, hey, I don't see it, but that's one thing that we want to have a separate one because not every customer wanted it. If you're optimizing for real estate, maybe not. If you're optimizing for more of a C2 view or trying to have a better mobile appearance, yes, or on your tablet, yes, you might want to need that. And then the search results view, like I said, modernized search results page, modernized product details page, and modernized customer details page are separate feature flags. So the reason for why we wanted visual profile is having the complete control. When we initially talked to customers in our cab sessions, it felt like a store will not be ready for all registers. Even the personas, the store associates may want to turn it out in phases. So visual profile kind of gives you the most granular control that you can have to roll out these changes. So with that in mind, even if we have a feature flag for the Uber feature, we also introduce the visual profile toggles for some of those intricate features, such as if you are going through the, for example, when you wanted to have the feature flag on and the modern transaction grid on, you would be able to also turn on, such as the quantity discount captions. Once again, the quantity discount captions on a PLP or a search result page is not dependent on transaction grid. So anything that is per page, you will have a separate feature flag, visual profile flag here, such as the quantity discount captions, the show stock count and availability across the stores in the search page is a separate visual toggle as well. Show inline quantity discount messages, that was the part of the transaction page where we introduced any quantity discount nudges. That could be a separate transaction page. Now I know I am trying to put this in parentheses, and each one of these do have their tooltip for you to know which page it's referring to. So when you look into the visual profile, you will have a description of which page we are targeting so that you can turn them on or off based on your requirements. So like I said, the threshold discount bar is on the transaction page. Product suggestions, which is that carousel we talked about, is also on the transaction page. And the other things on the PDP or product detail page is nearby store inventory. If you are looking to turn on the nearby store inventory view within the product details page by going to check other stores, that would be this toggle. And we are also showing the discount nudges inside the product detail or discount captions within the product detail page, and that's controlled by a separate flag. The reason why we did all of that is because we know that the requirements are vastly different between the different industries here, and we want to make sure that we don't like bombard you with everything that's on the card, making it confusing. So I know this is a bit confusing, but it's for the admin view, but you do not want to take it to the store associates with a similar note. So that's kind of why we have these toggles, to ensure that you are only turning on what is necessary for your customer/industry. But it is very good to kind of have this, sit down to make sure that what works, what not works. And also while testing, you can turn these toggles on and off and see how your experience kind of changes or uplifts along the process. So while all of this has been going on for the last several months, I do want to take an opportunity and give you some confidence here. We have, extremely good adoption for the transaction grid with over 10,000 devices. This I pulled it every day. We see an uptick. Luke and team can attest to that. We have gradual but fast uptick on transaction page in the last month or so, with over 10,000 devices. Search results page and PDP that was released as part of 10.047 is also getting its attention right now with after the GA. It started to uplift also on the usage here. So folks are turning it on. Folks are seeing the value here. So I just want to remind you that this is something that's not in its infancy. It has matured featured. We have taken care of feedback bugs here. So strongly encourage you to start using these features and definitely pour in your feedback and suggestions so we can, be on top of it. Like I said in the last slide, I do want to remind you the reason for why we have those flags are for your controlled rollouts, making sure that you have your, when you validate your config, you have your trainings done, and you kind of have a way to pilot your stores, not just stores, but also some registers within your stores using the visual profile. And of course, then once you're comfortable with the visual profile, you turn it on for multiple registers. And then, of course, you turn it on into multiple stores and the geos, and then you have a broader rollout. So we do give you the ability to have these levers and knobs at each level. So you start slow, but expand fast. So now putting some visual to what we've talked about. So let's just revise the stuff that I just, kind of walked through in the previous slides. And starting from the modern results, search results pages, what have we done? So this will give you a quick slideshow of it. So making sure that I'm, I'm highlighting some of those core improvements here. As you can tell, the modern search results pages have gone gone through its React migration, not just for the fundamentals, but also on the better imagery and insights such as the discounts. Like I said, the inventory, all of this are going to show up as you turn on the visual profile. Swatches is something that you see, but it is also coming out in 49. We just turned it on. So if you, and it will be backed up by a flag. If you have the flag on, then then it should show up on your cards. And once again, it's not for everybody. So that's why we have this as a toggle. Another thing is product detail page. We've made that whole thing from the horizontal to the vertical scroll here. We're having a better imagery and centered around, trying to have that clienteling kind of experience where you can actually go through the products in depth and have the customers kind of make their decisions. You have a better dimension pickers out here. And this is what I talked about, the check other stores that will open up your side drawer related to this is the related products, and this is the side drawer for your check, other stores inventory. This was done keeping in mind that you're not, you are trying to convert every single conversation. And if you're talking to customers and if you want to quickly look at the other store availability option and do a pickup in, offer a pickup in store or ship to store, it's going to be available right here on that side drawer, trying to lock the sale where you are at without having to move context. And that was a core reason behind it. And that's kind of where this feature helps. Moving on, the transaction page. In the transaction page, a few things. Again, the quantity discount. For those that are offering quantity discounts, there will be a caption for it showing up. And this is the related products carousel that kind of went through its upgrade. We will, as you're putting it in, this is totally extensible. For now, it will bring in the curated suggestions from your headquarters for whatever you maintain. But it is also allowing you an API that you can kind of pull in from any, if you have an external service for it, you can pull that in. The other thing is, yes, the inline, the inline, let me just move over. It just flipped. Okay. Okay, here is the inline actions, which I talked about right now. Right now, this list can totally be configured, and that's what I was talking about from a 48 standpoint. You can bring in what you want in the order that you want, including your custom actions. And this is where I was referring to. Sorry. That was my click. Okay, here. So this is the screen. If you've already tried out 48, you already will know, but this is kind of bringing in all of your actions that are excluding your custom actions, but that will show up as you're adding them in. And then you will be seeing, this is our take on what can be inline action, and this is where you are actually arranging them in your order and order of your priority as well as your shortlist. Will be in complete control for you. And the last thing is the threshold messaging, where it pops up if you have a threshold message, threshold discount that shows up as a nudge over here. for when you are closer to your threshold discount. The other thing is product details page. The product details page, not product, the customer details page is going through its upgrade. And the important thing to note is it has in two releases. The first release went in 48 that has given you the complete upgrade into React. We are trying to make sure that the custom controls are also accessible in a separate tab here, and looking at various extensibility options for customer details page. You will start seeing richer workflows as well. If you go into the transactions, you're going to see a buy now button, the wish list, and the wish list, as well as the affiliations page and all that. You will have complete control to showing those controls whenever you want to see or do not want to see. That configuration experience is shipping as part of 49. I am only going through the ones that are shipped, so you will hear more in our next set of webinars about all the controls you have to basically customize this page and configure it based on what you want to see. One more thing, if you've already not given a try, is this customer create and edit workflow is also upgraded, which means that we have tried to introduce inline validations, mandatory field validations, as well as one save aspect of if you're saving a customer, you do not have to save address once, the customer once. It is one save when you're trying to enter all of these details. Some geos brought up the need that the address is mandatory for fiscalization, which is why we introduced this feature. So you could go into your HQ and turn on the fields that you want to validate for mandatory reasons, and that will show up here. Again, configurable. So this is one thing that definitely is a silent feature that we kind of shipped as part of modernization, but is showing a lot of value for customers, at least in the European regions, that are looking to cater to their fiscalization requirements based on customers. All right. Well, we have just a few minutes, and I just want to close by, summarizing what's available now. You already see the modern transaction grid, the search results, the product details page, the customer details page, as well as the create and edit workflows of it, and inline actions along with its extensibility, with the control flags and visual profiles. What's coming next? The customer details page with added configurability and richer workflows, enhancements into transaction grid enhancements and workflow enhancements to cater for large size customers and large size carts. And we are looking more into having a conversational agent experience within the POS. So as a framework, we will hear more about that. You will hear more about that in the coming webinars. And then the extensibility skills that top of mind for us, which we will go through in the next 30 minutes. Ask from you all, please start piloting, if not rolling out the experiences at scale. Let us know the gaps. Definitely validate your extension needs and utilize skills for your extension, and come back to us if you see that is not meeting your needs. And make sure that your rollout model is appropriate for your stores and your customers. So that kind of wraps up the content for me on this introductory session for POS modernization. I think we have just a few minutes for any questions. Andre, I'm open for questions here. I could stop sharing.
Yeah, we have a question from Vish Nuraj. When is the configurability for the customer creation form sections planned?
It is already the configurability in the one configurability that we already have is choosing the fields that you need for mandatory validation. That's already there. And if you're referring to any other configurability of picking and showing only the fields that you need, I mean, I think that is not in the that is not delivered yet. We'd like to understand more, but the experience of how you create and edit the customer should be upgraded already by just having a quick workflow for entering the fields in one shot and saving it versus having double save.
Okay, thank you, Anusha. We have another one from Lynn. Will these UI improvements eventually be mandatory to take?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you asked. That is definitely our I would say, uh, our wish for you all to be moving to the new UX. And this is kind of where what we are trying to do is I mean, you will hear about it soon. We are already starting to think about it so that once we make this new experience as extensible as possible and have you guys on board to the skills and being able to move most of your extensions comfortably and do not see any challenges with the React, we are going to, very soon announce a date, which is not in the near future, I promise. But we are looking actively. We don't have that right now to answer, but we are looking actively to see how we can phase out the old experience and make this as a default. But we are not there yet in terms of we will be carefully monitoring the adoption for that in order to put out that date.
We have a good one. Will existing customizations continue working with the new UI, like extra customer validations or controls?
Yes, and that is our core. When we pick up every page, we make sure that the extensions the extensibility is brought in. And so that, I mean, there might be work for you to just move them over, but the understanding is it should work, which is what we've done. So every time the groundwork is all about moving the extensions over. So it should work. And if there is additional comments from our engineering group here, feel free to chime in. But yes, that's top of mind for us.
Thanks, Anusha. I'll just add, yes, I agree 100%. They should work. Anything using the existing POS API and the extension best practices will certainly continue to work without issue. And then if there's any other customizations that are giving issues for any reason, we want to hear from the community and make sure that we can lean in to help fix those and make sure that nobody else hits that issue going forward. So they should work, but if there's any issues, please let us know, and we're happy to jump in and get it working as quickly as possible.
We have a couple more. Yes, so Tana, Microsoft will soon deliver public skills for AI coding to speed up development POS. That is coming up with Felipe and Luke. So let me publish this. Do you have any dates for when controls become extensible, as it will influence on customer decisions to move?
I didn't catch that. Dates for when the controls become extensible.
Yeah, I think it's already out there,
already
right?
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where Luke and I want to know, like, what is a challenge? They are extensible, folks. The control, we are every page when it has custom controls, and we are bringing over extensions and making sure the custom controls work in the way that they did in the legacy. So if there are challenges, we wanted to know that, and we keep hearing some challenge, and we've responded to some. But please make sure that you bring that along. And the idea is you should not have to, re-go through the whole thing again.
Thank you so much, Anush. I think we are at time for starting Luke and Felipe's session. So over to you, Luke and Felipe.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Felipe Caminada. I'm a senior software engineer for the 365 Commerce Group. I'm going to show what we have built for the commerce accessibility, a skill to facilitate and speed up development on extensions for the commerce product. Okay, so we know that developing extensions on commerce has some challenges with the standardization, where to look for the APIs, which extension points are available, and how certain patterns apply. And thinking about all of that, we decided to build this accessibility skill, which will greatly speed up the development and creating extensions or modifying extensions from natural language, plain human language, to a working buildable store commerce solution, or that would include extensions into POS, the commerce runtime, hardware station, the channel database, and any CSU APIs needed, and also help troubleshoot a little bit. So hopefully that will greatly help with all these new changes coming in. Before I jump into demonstration, a brief explanation of how the skill works. So the first phase is capturing the requirements. So it will ask you all the requirements that you have for the extension that you're planning to build. Once you initiate the skill, it will shoot a couple questions to try to understand the requirements and to properly build the solution. And then it will, based on all the prompts and all the answers, it will classify what are the extension types that need to be developed. If it needs a new database table, if it needs like a new endpoint, what controls on the POS side it needs. After that, it will understand what is the current solution layout that you already have on your repository, any existing extensions. If you would like to add extension to an existing project, or if you want to build a completely separate project. And then finally, after categorizing everything, it will propose a solution, and I think it restarted here, sorry. And it will show the solution to you so you can approve. And if you want, you can iterate over and ask questions and refine the solution before it starts building anything. After design is approved, then it will start building the projects and the solutions from templates that we have, and it starts writing down everything that it has planned. And after it does the scaffolding part, it will build and make sure that everything runs and that the builds are green. So then it will build and make sure that it's running. It will also deploy the extension. It will run the installers for the Scala unit and for the StarCommerce extension. Make sure that it's properly installed and the extension was installed on the machine correctly for validation. And after all that, we'll create a plan for the HQ with all the steps required for the extension to work on the HQ side as well. The three important points from this that it will decide everything that needs to be done based on your prompts. We know it will use a knowledge base that we have of all the patterns, all the standards, all of the types of extensions, and all the templates we have for how the extension should be built. And it will help you to troubleshoot if there is any issues. It will have access to the event logs, installation logs, and help you package, deploy, and validate that the extension is working. I'm going to show the video directly now, so I think it will be easier. That doesn't have any audio.
Okay,
just talk through. Yeah, was for the small hiccup, but this was a short demo of the skill working. The skill takes about 50 minutes to complete between the prompting and completing the building the extension. So I'm just gonna show short snapshots. So I'm using here a prompt describing the requirement that I would like for. So for this example, I gave a prompt requiring to sell alcoholic beverages and requiring age verification. So I describe a little bit of how the system should prompt them, where the verification result is stored. Needs to be synchronized back to HQ for compliance, and have a dedicated screen where the store manager can review all verifications. So a pretty complete, and also a new peripheral. So it's a pretty complete prompt with all types of extension types that should be added based on this. So then the skill will read the prompt and ask clarifying questions. yeah, so it loads the decision tree, the workflow, the agent's files, and then ask the questions. So for this example, ask where the extension should be in a new solution or an existing solution, which platforms it needs to support, as that will change which types of packaging models it needs to apply, if it needs to use SQLite or SQL Server, if it's using iOS and Android, for example. If this feature needs to work in offline mode, we'll also create the correct SQL scaffolding for that. So it also asks if to confirm if this requires verification synchronization with HQ by SADX. After it gets all the questions, then it will classify everything. Okay, so it identified that for the POS, it needs a trigger, a dialog, a custom view, a custom operation. Also needs an endpoint on CRT plus handlers for saving and querying the verification records. New table in the channel database with a view and the corresponding SQLite, as this needs to be support offline. A new device controller for hardware station for the new peripheral, and the CDX side just to HQ. So it will classify all this, show the solution, complete solution with everything that it identified to be approved. At this point that you can you can ask questions, clarifying questions, or correct if something doesn't look right, or reiterate on what actually needs to be done, and it will refine the solution. Finally, we'll begin scaffolding the solution. We'll create the directories, all the necessary files for POS, conversion time, all the request handlers, all of the hard decision side, and all that. After everything is built, it will automatically after everything is scaffolded, I should say, it will start building solutions and making sure that everything is properly compiling correctly. If there was any mistake during the scaffolding, it will automatically fix it, and check with the cross-check with the APIs that are available on the SDK to make sure that every type exists there and everything is accessible. And side as well. And finally, we'll create it will create the plan for HQ, and we'll make sure that the build is successful. And the Store Commerce installers and scale unit installers, if you're using a local scale unit for testing, that they are properly deployed and installed with the extensions in them. Yeah, so then it verifies that the extensions exist on the CRT metadata. That verifies that the Store Commerce extension was indeed deployed. So this is packaging into the SDK, and by using the init dev target that we already have built into the SDK to prepare a new environment, this will bring in the skill into a local marketplace package isolating into that repository, so it can be used inside that repository. After installing the skill once, it will be available for all the sessions on that repository. So from the perspective of an existing repository, nothing changes. You already have the reference to the SDK package. This should already be part of your workflow to run init dev to get all the to prepare the environment for development. And installing the skill once will make it available to any assistant that uses Agent-SIMD. So Claude, Copilot, Cursor, any other that should be supported because of the Agent-SIMD support. This is the structure that we'll create. We'll create a Commerce SDK skills folder in your repository. which contains the Commerce ext dev plugin with all the workflow decision trees and all the patterns and knowledge base, all packaged within the Commerce SDK. That's all I have. Please let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah, let me ask you. There's a question in the chat here. Will it also test automatically everything after developing? I would imagine that you would have to instruct agents to write the tests, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't have built into the skill yet at the point of testing the extension and you actually running store commerce and then testing if this extension is visually there. But that's something that we have on the plans for the next versions of this. Right now, this is purely a build first, build and deploy first. I don't know, Luke, if you want to talk a bit more about the other capabilities that we're thinking about this, but
yeah, I think this is a great first step, and like you said, it's starting with the coding and then the building and locally deploying the extensions and making that part streamlined and easier, and then it hands it off back to the humans. And then what we're seeing with our internal agentic developing is the importance of enabling the agentic testing so that it can iterate. And so that'll be something we're looking to bring into this skill, as whether it's this skill or just further building out additional skills within this Commerce SDK agentic skills library. We want to do that as soon as possible and really enable the agents to do the basic smoke testing and do the basic testing, and then it'll kind of hand it off back to the humans with a test report in terms of what was tested and verified. And then as we're following internally, it'll still be the humans that are accountable for code review and final validation, but we can at least get the agent the necessary tools to complete the first pass of the coding task. And then there will be I think a lot of other future enhancements were planned, and this is something we really want to get feedback from community on in terms of what would be valuable and in terms of streamlining implementations and making life easier during development. So any feedback, we'd love to hear it, and we can continue to kind of evolve this agentic practice. And then I see there's one more question about sharing the code that the AI built. I think that's something we could look into sharing that, Felipe. Maybe we can, create a branch or something on one of the GitHub repos and share that. So stay tuned, but we'll look for a way to distribute that. If not, the skills will be available in 10.049, and so pretty quickly you'll be able to get your hands on it and test it and generate your own AI code to validate how it's working for your customers' scenarios.
Hey, Luke, do you expect to ship this in preview phase or only GA?
It'll be GA, but it's still because it's more development oriented. We're going straight to GA, but the onus will still be on the human that's using the agentic skills to make sure that the AI models are following instructions appropriately and that everything is working end to end, as ultimately we still have more context on all the important aspects of the system than the AI skill will have.
I have another question on, is the skill production ready? As we started getting feedback now from clients, they want to develop themselves and roll out. Do you have any kind of validation, safety, performance checks, etc.? So safeguards, so the code, AI won't affect production quality. I think you just touched that, right? But if you want to expand more on that.
Yeah, so I'll take a first pass at it, and then Felipe, I'll hand it back to you, and you can talk about some of the responsible AI stuff that you're working on as a part of shipping any skills. But basically, we do have validations. We're doing responsible AI testing, and Felipe will share more details on that. But ultimately, the skills, I would say, are an accelerator, but they still need full vetting, and the AI generated code, may work for the scenario that was prompted, but there may be other side effects. So we, at this point are still encouraging teams to do full vetting as they would with any human generated extension to make sure that, the proper SDL cycle is followed in terms of validation and testing and everything. And then Felipe, do you want to share a little bit in terms of details on what we're doing for responsible AI?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Lucas. So as part of the Microsoft's responsible AI policy, we need to make sure that all AI generated or AI models or AI code or anything that involves generative AI follows certain principles. And part of that is making sure that it will not generate harmful content, or it will not generate content that will be degradative in production. For example, it will not allow like unsafe code to be generated, even if you ask it. It has some safeguards already built into the harness itself, into the client agent itself. That's why I highly recommend using Copilot because of that. It has our harnesses on that, but even using other agentic clients, there are some safeguards into the skill to make sure that it will not follow an unsafe prompt or something that will that is not appropriate for the extension to do. It will only generate content for explicitly for commerce extensibility related, and also follow safe code practices.
Thank you, Felipe. Yeah, we don't have any further questions on the content. Okay, so I think with that we wrap this tech talk. I want to thank you, Anusha, Luke, and Felipe, for spending the time to present. Much appreciated, and for all the attendants that joined. Thank you very much, and please give us your feedback and fill the survey. Thank you very much.